people really get into it because it's not the stereotype thing, and it's but it still celebrates.
Your dog, man. Your dog, is that your dog or is it?
Yeah.
The dog's like digging this. I think I think I have a new fan. I think the dog's gonna be a fan. I'll send the dog an old 8x10. If the dog wants an 8x10, hey, you want to pay dog? Hey dog, hey there, puppy. You want a picture of Cooper? I'll send you a picture, I'll send you an autograph. What's the dog's name?
Happy.
Okay, I'll send. Actually, I have a friend I went to high school with. He has a dog named Blue Bear, and I sent the dog. I sent the dog a picture because he said Blue Bear's a fan, and they drew Cooper glasses on the dog and put a hat on it, and it was hysterical.
This is Coop's Comedy Corner. Buckle up because it's funny as Coop's Comedy Corner.
Welcome to Coop's Comedy Corner, people. Thank you for coming by again. It's always good to hear a great guest. I want to give a big shout out to Jimmy Corhan and Comedy Trainwreck, who produced the show. Make sure you go to Comedy Trainwreck. Watch all the other shows. There's some great YouTube shows. Eddie McGonigal's on there, The Wit and John Kensel. You have Coleman Green. You have Corey Alexander. You have a bunch of people, so check it out. And I want to give a shout out to my sponsors. Laurel Lanes, man. Laurel Lanes is the ultimate entertainment center. You know, they have 60 lanes of bowling, state-of-art arcade games, private luxury suite. I mean, there's something for everyone. And you can have a business event there, birthday party, or just a night out with your friends. I go there all the time to the restaurant, Splits Bar and Grill. It's great food, killer drinks, awesome happy hour every Monday through Friday, 4 to 7. And during the month, they have different events like karaoke. They have beer pong, they have trivia. And if you're having a network event, which I do host cocktails with Cooper there once a month, we get a great turnout. The first time you host a networking event there, they will give you 10% back to the charity of choice. So check it out. And on your way out, stop at Lickety Splits. That's their ice cream parlor, which they have handcrafted ice creams and some have booze. I have had the butter pecan bourbon and it kicks ass. So please check out Laurel Lanes. Go to laurellainesnj.com. All right. We have a great show. You know, it's funny. I host over at the Soundplex. It was Speakeasy Stand-Up. Now it's Clark's Comedy Connections. But my guest headlined that show, and the owner, George, loved them. And he might be doing a show. We're going to talk about that. And my guest is the very funny Mark Riccadonna. How you doing, Mark?
Hey, man. Thanks for having me on. I've actually driven by that place, your sponsors. It looks amazing.
Well, you know what's great about it is I would go during the Philly season and they have $1 hot dogs. So I would go and $2.50 Yinglings. Mm-hmm. So on a Sunday, Joanne would be doing something in the house. And I say, I'm going to watch the Phillies. I eat a few dogs, have a few beers, cost me like $12. And I came home. So anyway, I got to tell you, it's funny. This will air after the show. You do it. But a friend of mine, Annie Powell, is a comedian. And you are working with her in Maine this weekend. Yeah. And I used to host in LA. My friend Jimmy Galgano owned a bar called Jimmy's. And we had an open mic. Not an open mic. I would have acts come in. And I would let some open micers up. But I would get acts come in and we just work stuff out. And Annie's sister was a bartender at a place I used to hang out with. And she said, my sister wants to do comedy. So they came one night and I was having a few cocktails. I'm like, fuck it, get on stage. And she got on stage. And now she moved back to Boston and she's working all the time. And she's working with you. So you're going to Maine. You have man. Where are you going this weekend? The viewers will miss it. But tell me about your event this weekend. Because I know you're going to Maine. You're always on the road.
Yeah, I'm on the road like you. I'm so horrible how much I'm on the road. But yeah, I'm up in Maine. It's going to be, it's at this really cool Stafford Inn, and it's like it's like a spa, and they're doing a comedy show. And the cool thing about this gig is it's the tickets are already sold. It's a corporate company sold all the tickets, but it's still open to the public. I've never worked with Annie, so I'm really excited that now I have a connection, because you know how it is. You go in the green room, and if you don't know the comic, sometimes it gets a little like awkward, and you do that thing where you drop credits to let the other comic know you're legitimate. And it's like, this will be great because I can be like, Coop, and then she can feel like, hey, we're equals now.
Well, I sent her a message. I just sent her a message today when I saw it on your Instagram. the flyer. And I said, hey, Annie, you're working with my buddy, Mark Riccadonna. I said, he's really cool. He's really funny. And she sent back, oh, when am I going to work with you? I said, probably never, because I don't perform much. And, but I occasionally, I'm not going to go to Maine or Boston, but it's good. So yeah, you're right. It's funny. We do, you do drop the credits and that's not just in comedy. Like that's in the business world too. People are like, oh, such and such. I had a guy come up to me. He's like, oh, such and such owns this company. I did something with him. And I'm like, I don't give a shit. Like, when you get to a point, like you work a lot and we all know people, you've worked a lot. Hell, you opened for Blues Traveler. What was it, Blues Traveler? Yeah, we'll tell that story. But no, it's funny because you get to know people and it's such everyone knows someone. And when you've been doing it for a while, you're like, nah, I don't think. It's like people will say the credit, like I opened for this person. I'm like, well, that person's not that big. Like if you say Blues Traveler is one thing, but if you say some guy who's like headlining, Bananas in Poughkeepsie or whatever the hell it's called, that's not a big credit unless he has TV credit.
Yeah, well, I also think it's funny when a comic says they opened for another comic, unless they're huge. It's like, so you were the opening act. Like it's not as impressive as you think it is. Like, but it's like if you open for like Rodney Dangerfield, like somebody who is a legend, and you're like, I opened for George Carlin once. Like people would be like, holy crap, that's awesome. But even if they're like a big name now, like I opened for a couple really big name people that are in arenas that I got to open for, but like I don't think I would want to use that as a credit because it's like you're not quite them.
But also is the civilian, the normal out of industry person doesn't know who some of these people are. Like that happens a lot. People go like with Nate Bargatze, hysterical. He did Cooper Talk, wonderful guy, killer stand-up. Oh, he sells out arenas. But if you said to someone who's like 65, hey, Nate Bargatze, they'd be like, who? But then if you said Dangerfield or, Dennis Leary or Dice Clay or Chris Rock, they go, oh, yeah, so you're right. I think it's a name recognition always. It's like when people post, I co-starred in this movie, the star of, and you never heard of it. Like I was in a shit movie called Killer Drag Queens on Dope. And Alexis Arquette was in it, and Freddie Boom Boom Washington was in it, and Mark Feltzman. But I don't tell people that because people
I'm impressed just from the name.
Now, the funny thing is, you started off as an actor. You're one of those acting school guys. And how did you get your path to stand up? Because I know I gave you shit when I talked about this before, and we had talked about this how comics, when I was in Philly, if you walked in and said you want to be an actor, we'd be like, oh, but you were actually your concentration when you were younger was to go into acting, right?
Yeah, and I actually, it's funny. I was just thinking about this because I'm listening to Ron Howard's book that he wrote. Him and Clint Howard wrote for their parents about their parents, and his mom went to the same acting school as me.
Which was what?
The American Academy of Dramatic Arts. And I went to this school. I wasn't an actor. Like in high school and in grade, like I loved acting, but I wasn't an actor. I didn't know what I was doing. And then I got an opportunity to audition for some really big acting schools, and I got in at the academy, and I did it, and I loved it. And it was, I still love acting. I still love it. I'm going to Palm Springs in 2 weeks to film a TV series called Unsuited, which hopefully I'll be able to tell you where it'll be airing soon. I don't know. I'm not trying to make it mysterious. I have no idea. But I still love acting and I still love directing. I do a lot of directing, but I was doing theater. And I was working at a comedy club, and I just kind of fell into wanting to try stand-up, and I kind of didn't take it that serious. It was just something fun to do. And then when I did it, I was like, this is really fun. Like, this is amazing. And I was still doing it just for fun, but I was putting a lot of work in. And then I realized, like, I think if I do it and take it very serious, I could actually, like, make a living doing stand-up.
Now, what was so fun to you about it? Because I know for me, when I started, it was I think it was just the laughter. I don't know, because I was always nervous, and I always, I never really went on a set list. I still don't do that, and I should, because I have a lot of material I'll never do. But for me, I think I love, and if people go, it's better than sex, which full of shit. But but for me, it was, I think, just the laughter, and I think the reaction, and I honestly think for me, it was also the acceptance. I mean, I was popular in college, and I wasn't an unpopular guy. I was popular,
Yeah.
very popular in college, but it was more of that acceptance of people. And I think that's what I loved about it, that they accepted my creativity. What did you find about it saying fun? Because I can see it being different when you come from an acting, because you don't have that stage fright, because, a play is sort of like stand-up. Yet, 6 nights a week, you have to
Yeah.
memorize shit. If something goes wrong, you have to sort of free will. But what did you find that was fun about it?
So something that made it so addicting is if you get cast in a play, which first of all is so hard to do, just the idea of you getting a job as an actor is next to impossible. So like even when somebody tells you like I got a role and it's in something really shitty, they still accomplish something pretty amazing. Getting getting a job as an actor is insanely hard. And then you get the job, and then you got to rehearse for months, and it depends on the other person, and it depends on the director giving you notes, and then next thing you know, you have an opening night. They rented a theater, and you got the theater, and you got your run, and then every night you go up and you get to work in front of an audience and see if what you're doing makes sense and it works with an audience. Where stand up, it's like I got a joke in the car on the way to the gig. I can put it up that night in front of an audience and see if it works. So it was kind of like mainlining creativity, where like doing theater and doing a film is more like, like drinking. You have to go out and buy the booze, you got to then open it, you got to drink it, then you got to wait for it to kick in. Where this was just like immediate mainlining creativity. So it became addictive, that it was like, I can just make something up right now and then go on stage tonight and do it. And
Or you can make something up right now, and I can go on stage and do it. I can take your joke. So
well, that's what I mainly do is take other people's stuff because I want it to work.
You say about creating it. And I got to ask you in the beginning, because I worked with you a while ago, and you tell very good stories. In the beginning, because as you said, you were working at a comedy club, which I think is always a good thing for people who do comedy, because you can absorb acts, you can notice it, you can learn the art. Like when I worked at the Comedy Factory outlet, I saw Don Maireri, Bobby Collins, Tim Allen, Dice. Like we saw these people, Rondell Sheridan, all these acts that were gamers, man. They brought it, and you could watch and you could absorb it, and you could see what they were doing. When you were working at the club, because you weren't going to do stand-up originally, you just said you got the job there, and
Yeah.
and when you started doing it, where did you get your material from? And were you telling stories back then? Because I know now you do tell stories, but what was your beginning material like?
So it's funny because I look back and the people that I really looked up to that weren't famous, that were like just working the club, and now you have to remember this is the late '90s, early 2000s. It was like an Adam Ferrara, Pete Corielli, Andrew Kennedy. Like these were like the regulars, and they were doing. Carl LeBove was another one. They were doing short stories, but it wasn't just jokes. Where when I was like thinking of even like my childhood, like it was like Dangerfield and Stephen Wright, and it was just joke, 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 joke. So when I went to do comedy, I was like, you got to write jokes. Like that's what you do. You write jokes. But I saw all these alternative comics. So when it first started, it was a lot of just like high energy, just joke telling. Like I would write these really dumb jokes. They, I wasn't good at writing these jokes, and it was actually Carl LeBove told me. He goes, hey man, like when we're at the bar, and or before we go on stage, like you always tell these funny stories. Have you ever noticed like even the comedians listen to you? You should do that. I was like, oh, yeah, you can do anything you want. Like when I first started, it was just writing jokes and they weren't good. Like it was just like a ball of energy telling jokes. And another thing that was kind of funny was I took improv classes at the Upright Citizens Brigade, and I would get obsessed. Me and a couple of the guys, we would get obsessed with making characters and then going up and doing stand up. When I started doing stand up, going up as the character. And what would it be funny if this guy was a stand up comic? Like we had this one guy, he was the world's worst crowd work guy. He actually, I should bring him out and make crowd work videos and see if it goes viral. But he would just do really shitty crowd work. Like, you know, it'd be like, hey, where'd you get that hat? The stupid hat place? Like, it was all just really bad crowd work.
So when did you make that switch? You know, LeBeau told you, you know, tell the stories, but you're right. When you start doing stand-up, you think it's jokes. You know, it's something you do, and you sit there and the jokes are, I think, always a little bit of a safe haven because you expect people, they expect to see a joke, and all of a sudden, that's why I'm glad there's more storytellers, and like you're going to do the storytelling show at Soundplex, but I think it's better, but a crowd has to get used to that. Like I think they're cultivated. Back then, if you went up and told a story, unless you know you're like Kinnison told sort of story bits, but they always had the heavy punchline, like but there was a story in it.
Yeah.
But so when did you sit there and make the decision that you were going to tell stories? And when you made that decision, how did it work? And another part of this question is, did you have the confidence? Because it's when you it's scary when you have to do something like brand new. Like I have to always do shit at Soundplex because it's the same crowd sometimes. And George is giving me a hard time, like, oh, Cooper, what is it? So I have to come up with newer stuff, and it's scary because you can sit there and if the first bit doesn't work, you go, oh, fuck, I gotta go back to my old stuff. But when did you make the decision to go into storytelling, and were you confident doing it? How did it work?
I want to say it was about 2 years in. It was about 2 years in, and I didn't. This is gonna sound like it's gonna kind of sound like bullshit, but like the advantage I had over other people that were 2 years in is I didn't give a shit. Like I didn't care. I worked at the club. So what were they gonna do? Not book me? Like I'm already underpaid working there. So like there wasn't I didn't have a care of like if this doesn't work, I'll never be able to come back here. So I had an advantage over a lot of comedians of it was safe for me to work in a real club and do comedy. So, and I also was an actor, so I wasn't afraid of silence. Like a lot of comics are like, if I don't get the crowd laughing in 30 seconds, I gotta bail out of this bit. And I didn't care. And I also wasn't afraid of the silence. But there was a huge difference if the audience was doing this or if they were like this.
Right.
So when I'd be doing stand-up, there might not, if you were out at the bar, you might not hear laughter. But when you walked in the room, people were leaning in and kind of like paying attention to the story. And not a lot of people were doing storytelling back then. So I think the audience kind of got thrown for, what's this guy doing? And they kind of would listen and gave me a chance. But I always had bailout lines that I could, get out of a story with a joke. And I always had those in my back pocket in case I got the light and had to get off stage early. Because I was only doing sets when people were paying checks. So it wasn't like, Mark, go up and do 10. It was like, Mark, go up and do maybe 3, maybe 10, maybe 15. As soon as the checks come in, we'll let you know. And then as soon as the checks came in, I'd get off stage. But we had professionals waiting to go on. So like when they gave you the light, you got off stage. There was none of this like, well, I was cooking, so I just wanted to let people. It was like,
Now, okay, so you're doing that. Now, when you start trying to get work, okay, how are bookers and other people who run rooms taking to the storytelling? Because as you said, there wasn't a lot of people doing it. And I'm sure at one point you decided. I mean, how long were you doing it that you decided, okay, I like getting up on stage at the comedy club that I work at, but now I want to get work elsewhere. How long was it, and what was that for you? Because like when I started, there was clubs everywhere. Andy Scarpati had 7 clubs, and after I was doing comedy for like a year and a half, he gave me 35 weekends because I could MC. And then Mitchell's was in Palmyra. I got 4 weekends from Joe. Then I got 4 weekends from the Comedy Factory Outlet, 4 weekends from the Comedy Works. I made a guy named Solari, and then you got in with other bookers. I mean, for like my a year and a half or 2 years, I did not have a weekend off, and I chose not to because there was so much work, and that was a thing. But for you, how long till you were doing it that you decided that I really want to get work? And how did bookers react? Because here you are, you're telling stories, and you're an actor, and you don't give a shit.
Yeah. Well, by the time I got where I was going on the road, I was like getting more concentrated on doing comedy. But I had a lot of really great comics that were bigger name guys that had pull that would take me on the road because I had a car. B, I wasn't like anything they gave me, I was just grateful for. I wasn't hungry. Like I wasn't constantly trying to get shit from them. I was just kind of like, yeah, this would be great. We're going to drive to Rochester. Let's do it. Like I was more about the trip and the party than I was like, oh, so next weekend you got another thing I could. So I would go on the road with these guys, and this is it's going to sound a little arrogant, but looking back, it was kind of a really smart thing. Was I was used to going on stage when people were paying their checks. So now these guys are taking me out of the city, and we're going to like Long Island, where the people are ready for a comedy show. So all of a sudden, I was going on stage and going like, "Well, this is easy. These people are listening. Like, this is great.
Right.
Like, they're actually listening. Like, I usually had to fight to get their attention, and I'm trying to do stories. So then I was going out, and I had a nice steady stream of uh, growth. Like it was right when it started to get, I was used to doing these check spots. Then I started to go out on the road, and I started to have like open for people, and I would only have to do like 15 minutes. And it was awesome because there wasn't the pressure. Again, there wasn't the pressure like a lot of these people have, where you go out and if it doesn't go well, you'll never work there again. I kind of didn't care if they didn't book me again. I mean, I wanted to and I cared about the work, but I didn't care if like these clubs were ever going to book me because I didn't think this was a thing you could like. I didn't think I was going to make a living doing stand up.
Now you said you didn't care, and I understand that. But then you said you didn't care, but were you still putting some effort into writing new stuff? Like you have.
I cared about the work.
Okay.
I cared about the art of stand up a lot. Like my whole life was dedicated to writing new material, trying new stuff, taking big risks. I used to love taking huge risks that like this is either going to bomb or kill. And I took that very seriously. But I didn't take the business part serious where it's like holding a club to a standard of like, oh my God, I have to get back in this room. Because I kind of had this thing where it was like, they're not going to ever book me again by myself. So I'm only going to come in if a comic brings me. So like, I would meet the owners or the bookers and I would be friendly to them. I would have a great time with them. It was, to me, being on the road was just a party. I was in my early 20s. And I was out on the road seeing the country. It was amazing. And I didn't think I'd ever be back to any of the clubs we went to, because it was like I was going in because Greg Giraldo brought me. And I'll probably never be back. But I got like kind of a rep of being like an easy guy to work with. And, oh, he's fun. Bring him back. And so I don't remember who the first club was, but when I got asked, like, you could come back. Like, you can call in and come back to the club if you ever want to come back, if you're, passing through Pittsburgh or whatever. And I was like, what? Like, yeah, but you only have Greg like once a year. So, like, why would you want me back? They're like, yeah, but opening X can come back, 2-3 times a year. I was like, oh, really? And next thing you know, I was getting like side work outside of opening for the couple guys that were taking me out on the road. And that's when I realized, like, I might be able to do this. Like, there's a shot.
So when did you start taking the business area seriously? When did you sit there? I mean, once they said you can come back, you're like, oh, okay. But you still weren't taking it as a serious. But when did you start concentrating, saying, okay, because you need to take the business part of it serious because it's show business. It's show business. So when did you start taking that part serious?
So in the city, with the city clubs and doing things around New York City, probably like 3 years in, 3-4 years in. But like the road, I didn't consider it that viable of a thing because I was like, I didn't think doing stand-up was real. You know what I mean? I couldn't believe I was doing it. I was just along for the ride, having a good time. And I would say with that, probably like 5 years in, I started to realize, like, I could keep coming back. And if I keep working on new material, like, maybe I could become a feature. If I do a little more work, like, maybe I'll close in like 10 years or whatever. I was making good money doing voiceovers, so I wasn't sweating the MCs get paid nothing on the road. But I didn't care because I was making my money doing voiceovers. So this was like fun. And then all of a sudden it started to make money. Like, oh shit, I can actually make a little money. So it was a weird situation because I felt like I fell into something that I really enjoyed and all of a sudden found out you can make money doing it. And I didn't even know that I was going to continue it even as doing something that I enjoyed. It was like, this is a really cool moment and I'm just going to enjoy it. Like, I'm doing stand up, I'm having fun. But like I always kind of had my eye on the prize of theater and film and stuff. Then all of a sudden it slowly eclipsed it, and I was like, oh, I'm doing stand up more than anything else.
Now, when did you sit there and decide? I mean, you still were acting when you did stand up, doing voiceovers, but at what point it sounds like stand up became more important than acting. So at the time, so when that happened, how did you balance that? Because I mean, you're right. Being an actor it can be grueling. I mean, audition. Even if you have great credits, audition. I mean, earlier episode of this show, we had Reed Diamond and Kyle Secor, who were both on Homicide Life on the Street, who I've become friends with because they've done my other show a few times. But even then, like, they're about to hit shows and they still have to go to auditions. And it's like you're on. Kyle was on all 7 seasons of Homicide Life on the Streets, which some people say is one of the best network crime episodics ever. But he's still, and as they get older, it works up because it's a constant audition, it's a constant grind. So was it easy for you to sort of turn your shoulder on acting because it wasn't that grind? Because as you said, comedy, you were getting work. It wasn't like you were sitting there going to an audition and waiting. Here you're like, oh, I made a call, I can go to Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Well, and the work was coming relatively easy. And I think it's because I was so used to acting where it's like, man, you fight and claw and work your ass off. And if you get 1 out of every 1,000 auditions you go on, you're doing good, And it's like with stand-up, it was like, I'll make 3 phone calls. One of them books me. I'm crushing it. Like, that was, I had this reputation of being easy to work with and that I always enjoyed and was thankful for the work. And it just kind of fell on my lap so that it was like a real thing to do. And I know I'm extremely lucky and extremely but I think it happened because I wasn't trying. like to make it happen.
Well, no. So at what point do you decide, or do the clubs decide, when do you start headlining? Because that's the big step. And they always say, a lot of times you can't headline the area you're from unless you leave and come back. It's this old bullshit, It's like if you go to LA, I mean, I saw so many crappy acts, like when I worked back in the day, who moved to LA and they were crappy in LA and they didn't get any work, and they come back and they say, oh, I'm working here. And then people would start headlining them and they sucked. It was because they left and they were in LA, which LA, I mean, shit, I know comics were like, oh, you're a hobby comic. I'm like, yeah, but I made more money in this year doing comedy than you've made in 5 years sitting around LA doing coffee shops in front of 8 other comics. So it's one of those things, it's the thing. But when did you start headlining? When did it sit there? And because you headline, and as I said, you headline my show. And it's like, with my show at that club, I've had, Dina Blizzard, I've had Jay Black, I've had Chip Chantry, I've had, strong headliners. So it's not like you're just some guy said, oh yeah, it's a budget move. So you headline, so you have the chops. Well, how long ago did you start being a consistent headliner? Not the eight people on the show and you're doing 15 other headliner
the last
on the show. Because a real headliner can do like an hour on, backwards or more, So when did you start? How long ago did you started consistently headlining?
This was another thing. I wasn't in a rush to headline. I wasn't in that big rush. And I still, to this day, like, Coop, if you called me and said, hey, man, I got asked to go to Chicago to do a gig. You want to go? I go, hell yeah. Like, I'm in it more for the fun stuff. And, I do my corporate events and I'll do my whatever to headline. But I was never in a huge rush to get to be the headliner. I also had a lot of friends who were headlining, and I wanted to keep working with them. So I didn't rush into headlining right away. But I would say when I was about 10 years in, I started having comics say like, hey man, like, I love that you always want to come work with me, but like, you kind of need to go on your own now. Like, you got to leave the nest. You're strong enough to go on your own. That was about 10 years in.
Now, were you happy when you? I mean, there's added pressure when you headline. That you have to do the time. Well, the thing is, you were used to dealing with the checks because on a normal show, checks come out when the headliner's on, so you already had it on your belt. But there is a pressure, and it also is, especially if you're a new headliner, every feature is going to gun for you. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to sit there and go, I want a headline. Why is this guy headlining? Especially you didn't care. So if you got headlining before someone, because there are some people who are just lifetime features. It's just
So it's all about an energy shift. And
so were you okay with them gunning for you? Because once again, I know you didn't care. But when you're up there, you care because you take the art serious and you want to do well and you want people to like you and you want the club owner to say, hey, we really like this guy. So did you feel it in the beginning that did you feel the pressure?
Yeah. And to be honest, I mean, when I started taking it serious, I did start caring, like a lot more. But getting into it, and it wasn't, I maybe I misworded it, where it's not that I didn't care. It was I didn't have pressure. I didn't put the pressure on myself. A lot of these people, a lot of these younger comics, and I'm not saying younger as in age, but newer comics, really put pressure on that. It's like, I have to do this and this by this time. And I was always kind of like, I just want to do good work, and I'm not in a rush. I never was like, I have to get on Letterman. I would love to have gotten on Letterman, but I wasn't in some kind of like timeline thing. So when I started headlining, it was probably about 10 years in, I knew I was strong enough that even like these features that would come out and they'd gun for you because they wanted to blow you off the stage to get that headlining spot. I wasn't really scared of them because I worked the city where it's like, you might have to go up after Jim Norton, or you're following Jim Gaffigan or Lisa Lampanelli. And they did 20 minutes of killing for 20 minutes. And then you have to go up and it's swim or sink. And so I never really was afraid to have to follow some of these guys. The big problem for me with when headlining became a thing was how do you get people in the seats? You know, if you when I started, it was like, hey man, if you have a TV show, people are going to come out to see you, or if you have major credits, people come out and see you. But now that doesn't even do it. Now it's like social media following, and that's like a whole new world, man. There's people that are like professional online comics, you know, and
And then
it's
they go to
like,
the club. And they go to the club and they don't deliver a lot of the time because it is being an online personality, and that's what sort of sucks. I mean, if it happens to you, more power to you. I know a podcaster I know was bitching about how Hawk Two Girl was has just gets all these guests in her podcast. And I'm like, well, you can't worry about what they do. I said, good for
yeah,
her. I mean, I would love to get some of the guests you get, but I've had amazing guests on Cooper Talk. I mean,
yeah,
sick guests. And the thing is, you can't worry about it. And those people, and the funny thing about that girl, Hawk Two Girl, whatever, she's really cool. Like she gives a lot to charity because she never thought this would happen.
yeah,
It was just one stupid video, and it was just what the people needed. So, some people I know, especially older comics, resent that, or podcasters
yeah.
resent these
I
people.
think
But it's
more
like you
power
can't
too.
resent it. Just keep creating, man. Because you have to be happy about you. If you need to keep
Yeah,
the day job, that's fine. But if you're creating, that's all that counts. And a lot of people don't look at that. They think, being a star is creating, which isn't true because there's a lot of shitty
yeah,
actors out there who've gotten parts, and there's a lot of great actors who haven't.
yeah. I mean, I'm in my own race. And I have been my whole career. I'm racing my own thing, man. Like I can't compare myself to other acts because I do what I find interesting. I do what I like. I mean, like we were saying, like I was doing storytelling. Like now it's kind of more mainstream, and a lot of people are doing it, and there's a lot of famous comedians that made it. But back when I first started switching to trying to do storytelling, it was like people were like, "What do you think you're Andy Griffin? You know, do you think you're Ron Schock? Like you're some old Southern guy who's just going to sit down and tell some stories?" And I was like, "Yeah, but it's what I like, and it's even my podcast, like my online presence." I was just talking to Christy Miller today about it because I was thinking about like just giving up on the whole online thing because I feel like I put out stuff that I find interesting and it only gets so many views and I don't get that many likes. But then I'll get like an email, like my one friend Greg or Tom, they like they'll send me a direct message and be like, I look forward to every morning. I know you're always going to put up like a minute snippet from an interview and it's always something like kind of good. And I go, but you don't even like it. Like you don't even click
You know,
like.
Well, it's funny. You have to get used to that. Like I have people say, "Oh, bro, I dig your podcast." I'm like, "Well, go like it on YouTube or make a comment." But then I learned, no, you know what? That doesn't make a difference. People like it, and you're right. And I think we do become so consumed with likes. Like me, I do those album reviews on Facebook, but I only do it on albums that come out that day. So like right now, nothing's really coming out in December. But sometimes I get 5 likes. Like, what the hell? People love this album. But then a few of them I got like 980 likes. And I'm like, people don't even know we're liking it. It just went out there. And it's like, but I do them for me because I do it for my friends don't have to like it because people my age, we remember these albums. When you sit there and you see Billy Idol, Rebel Yell with Blue Highway, great song. People remember that shit. And I've learned that, when you get consumed by the likes, it's showing narcissism. I think a lot of times instead of just doing it, because if you can make one person happy, that's more.
Yeah.
You're doing more. I mean, I see it on LinkedIn a lot with business stuff. People are just assholes. They write like my takeaway from this. It's like no, your takeaway should be. It's like no, you don't know me, so don't tell me what my fucking takeaway should be. And they do it. It's just out of the drive of narcissism. And the thing is, but with a creator, you create. You want people to enjoy your creation, but if it's just 1 or 2 or 3 likes. And that's more than you could write some political drivel and get 80, thousands of likes. Oh, people in comments, people going, fuck you, you don't know about anything about politics, blah, 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 blah. But it's not that's not why we create. We can't worry about creating for likes, but a lot of people, especially newer comics who are getting that viral sensation, they create for likes, but then they'll make their money, but then they're going to be a flash in the pan.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's so funny you're saying that. I was on the phone for like 2 hours this afternoon just talking about this. And it wasn't that I wanted to quit social media because of of narcissism on the likes. It was, am I just putting shit out there that nobody cares? Like, should I just sit in my car and think about this stuff instead of trying to put it out there? Like, I'm trying to bridge, like, there has to be more like-minded people. And this is stuff that I find interesting. To have Dan Lauria talk about a movie from the 50s that basically predicted AI. And I thought this is so interesting. And I put it online, and it like literally like 100 views and
Yeah,
two
but people
likes.
don't. Sometimes people don't see it. Like I don't see a lot of your stuff. I don't go into Instagram. I've interviewed Dan Lauria. He's a wonderful guy. He was
Yeah.
driving to Palm Springs to teach an acting class, and he cut out. He is calling me from his car. But it's a matter, But a lot of people don't see, and a lot of people don't want to. I think once again, LinkedIn people overlike to kiss ass. But I think if you start overliking someone's stuff, like their creative stuff, anyone who's creative thinks, well, this person likes a lot of my shit. And they're like, wait, is there something wrong with this person? Like wait, are they stalking me? Like what goes? And that's the way I think creative people think. It's just different. But I'm saying, I know what you're saying, but your stuff I've seen is good. And but once again, I don't go on Instagram a lot. I don't go.
Yeah.
And the whole thing of people liking stuff and viewing stuff, I do a stupid TikTok character, and I put my glasses down. I put my hand. I go because I'm cross. I go. Oh, still sit there. Oh my God! Look at this. I did that on the Eagles when the Eagles won the Super Bowl. I got 10,000 views. The other day I put when I had 2,000 views because I just like I told a joke and I do it. And young people, they think I'm like, they call me Unc. But I found out from my nephew. That's cool. But it's like
Nice.
I'm thinking. But then I can write a funny joke and it won't get those views or likes or something. But I do something completely stupid like this, and it gets thousands and people share it. And so that's the thing about social media. It's just so screwed up. Like you got to stay on it just because if you feel like you're making a difference and if it's interesting to you, hey, as I said, if just a few people like it, hey, that's worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I got this direct message from Tom Cotter. I got one from Greg Vaccarello that said that they like what I'm doing. And it made me feel really good because it's like, okay, at least somebody's enjoying it. And that's what I wanted. That's why I post, is I want people to enjoy or to find like, oh, that's cool. Like, I'm not looking to like get famous from it because I'm interviewing kind of some obscure people, studio musicians, and just working class artists. And I'm just trying to put that out there, and that it's like, you don't have to be Dave Chappelle to be a comedian. Like, there's a lot of working class guys too. Like, there's a lot of us out there that just work, and it's people think if you're not famous, it's whatever.
Well,
And I just kind of want
comparable to the. Well, it's comparable to the character actor or the session musician. The session musician, people know who they are, but their work. And everyone respects them. Everyone knows them. And the character actors, too. They all know each other. Stars know them. And that's the thing. They're working guys, and they are the working class. They're not making millions. They're not selling out arenas. But I think we need them because, not everyone can afford to go to pay $200 to go see an act at Wells Fargo or wherever. So, okay, I got a question. Now, we've been talking about storytelling and how you're doing storytelling in your act. But now you also do storytelling shows. So what is the difference? Because I've done a few storytelling shows, and I do a story that I don't do in my act. I've done it once or twice, but I didn't do it for that comedy. But what's the difference when you do because I know you're getting one started up, you're going to record one. What's the difference between your storytelling on stage and storytelling as a storytelling show?
So on a storytelling show, one, if you're a comic, you can't do your material. We don't want to hear any jokes. Obviously, you're probably funny, so you're going to get laughs because you're going to be telling a story and you're going to get laughs, but you're not allowed to do your act. It needs to be a true story. And but the cool thing about storytelling shows is you don't have to be a performer. I'm planning on. I have two retired detectives. One's a homicide detective out of New York, and I know another guy. It's a retired detective out of Philly. That I want them. I'm trying to see if they're available when we do pick our date, because they have great stories and they're interesting slices of life. And I think it's kind of important, especially, I mean, specifically talking about these two cops. I think it's interesting to have people hear the human side. It's not like a movie. It's not like, Lethal Weapon or whatever. Um, these true stories, and these people have feelings, and and it's a hard job. And like firemen, cops have great stories, but also other people do too. Like anyone can do storytelling. All you have to do is have a story, and a thing that happened. And so these storytelling shows, I feel like it's not, sometimes they're funny, but sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're really sad. I mean, I've been to some, and if you ever look up on the Moth, Mike DiStefano, that guy, he was a great stand-up comic, but his stories were, you'd start crying. They were so deep, and you know, it's just amazing to watch. If it's just a normal person, not a performer, go up and you see them come to life. It's just awesome. But
So
comics don't do material like that's.
okay. So the storytelling show you're going to record. How many acts are in it? What's it going to be?
So usually you guess that the acts are going to do about 10 minutes each. Usually put like 4 to 6 stories. Usually more like 4. And then I host it, and my friend Maureen will also be a host on it. And we'll open the show and kind of have fun and get the audience, almost like a crowd warm-up scenario for television, and get the crowd into it, and loose. You don't want to just have people cold go up and tell stories. You got to get them in the mood. And then I like to do the story, and then after their story, just have a little moment, talk to them, ask them questions, because the other thing is people sometimes get nervous and they screw up their story a little, and then they get off stage and go, oh, I wanted to really tell them about the blah blah blah. So I try to give them a little bit of comfort after, to talk a little bit. And then depending on the type of show, sometimes I'll even talk to the crowd and see if they had questions for the storytellers. But yeah.
Now, so you have the storytelling show. Now, if you were a musician, you'd be like a prog rock musician, because you have all these conceptual ideas. Like you do that Irish Italian thing. Tell me about that. I think is it Richburn? Is that what it is you do it with?
Yeah, I do it with Tom Briscoe.
Tom Briscoe.
Yeah.
I think Richburn. Oh, that's
Irish. Well, I do. I
tell
do
me about that.
Okay,
that's why. But no, so tell me about that, because that's also, it's conceptual. It's not regular stand-up, which I think in this day and age, people can get tired of regular stand-up. That's why, like now, Soundplex, our show, I have George come up first, and we have wine tasting before, and then we talk about the history of the Soundplex. So people are interested because it's such a cool building. And then I do 20, and then if we have someone who wants to do a guest set who can bring people, they can do time. But if they don't, I'll bring the headliner on, and they'll do like 45. So that's something different, because we said we just can't do the comedy. We want to bring in the networking, because we aim for that business crowd. But for you, you're conceptual. Tell me about the Irish Italian show.
Yeah, so it's a Gaelic versus Garlic show, and what it really is just essentially compare and contrast. I grew up in a very I grew up in the Midwest, Ohio. I have an Italian family. We're not the stereotypical Italian family. We're not that, plastic on the furniture. I call it Italian blackface, the comics that do the, it's like a little embarrassing being Italian when you hear some of these guys. And then my buddy Tom grew up in a very Irish household in the Bronx, and we kind of do a compare and contrast on what it's like to grow up in the house. from food to religion to all the different things. And we have the audience do a little participation with us on asking questions and if they have different things they want to bring up. But it's essentially just finding the humor and how we were brought up and what it's like now that we're both parents and raising our kids, and now he's a grandparent. But yeah, it's a lot of that, and people really get into it because it's not the stereotype thing, and it's but it still celebrates.
Your dog, man. Your dog, is that your dog, or is it?
Yeah.
The dog's like digging this. I think I have a new fan. I think the dog's gonna be a fan. I'll send the dog an old 8x10. If the dog wants an 8x10, hey, you want to pay dog? Hey, dog. Hey there, puppy. You want a picture of Cooper? I'll send you a picture. I'll send you an autograph. What's the dog's name?
Happy.
Okay, I'll send. Actually, I have a friend I went to high school with. He has a dog named Blue Bear, and I sent the dog. I sent the dog a picture because he said Blue Bear's a fan, and they drew Cooper glasses on the dog and put a hat on it, and it was hysterical. But so you do this show now. Once again, how do you book something like that? Because it's not the typical comedy show, and people don't want to think outside the box that much.
Oddly enough, I think people do. They want something different. That it's it's not the stereotypical stand-up show. We're going to do we're going to be funny. It's going to be a comedy. And can you let the dog out? We're going to entertain you for 2 hours, and it's going to be a lot of fun. But it's a show that needs to be in a small theater. It's not a show that you want to put into a comedy club because it's not stereotypical stand-up. So it's easy to put into a small theater and kind of compare it as it is comedy, but it's not a stand-up comedy show. It's more, and it's not really scripted, but you can treat it as if it was scripted.
Now talking about scripting, I know you directed a movie a while ago, and you're acting more. What's like the project you have coming up? And I know you shot a movie a while ago, right? Didn't you just shoot a movie?
Yeah, we just shot and finished a film called Painted Casket, and I actually just today finished setting it up to start sending it out for film festivals. We're going to put that out on the film festival circuit. And then in April, we're doing a travel show that I'll be directing. And it's going to be in Europe, and it's a travel show. I don't want to give away too much, but we got a really awesome host lined up. I don't think I'm allowed to say who it is yet, but I'll definitely let you know.
Shake your head this if it's my friend Zane Lamprey. Is it Zane Lamprey?
No.
Okay.
That sounds awesome.
So now what you're shooting in Palm Springs, what is your role?
So it's a show called Unsuited, and it's about poker, and I am the bad luck charm. I'm the whole when I show up, everybody starts losing. When they're talking to girls and I show up, all of a sudden they walk away. So I'm the mush. My character's his name's Kryptonite, and he's great. He just constantly, he's the comic relief. Whenever I show up, it's gonna lighten up. But the funny part about that was I got the part when for the pilot. I auditioned for it, and I don't know how to play cards. So I got the part, and I didn't say anything until after all the papers were signed. And then I mentioned to him, oh, by the way, I don't even know how to shuffle. So they had to actually hire a consultant to teach me how poker works.
Well, that's awesome though. So now where would you like to see yourself in the next few years in your career? I mean, I know you sit there and we all think about it, and you can't overthink it, but where would you like to personally see yourself? Because you've been working for a while. You went to school for acting. You're doing it all. You're thinking outside the box. You're acting. You're doing comedy. You're doing these gigs, you're shooting stuff. Where would you like to see yourself in 5 years?
Honest to God, doing the exact same thing I'm doing now, but for better money. Like that is exactly what I want. I love doing stand up. I love going on the road, but I hate being away from my family. So I only want to do the road if it's financially a really good move. I want to continue acting. I want to continue directing. I really love everything I'm doing right now with my life. I love being around my family. I love doing all that kind of stuff. So I would just love to make more money.
Now, I have one final question, and then you're going to tell us a story. One final question. Looking back where you are now in your career, what is one or two things you're most proud of then when you look back at your career?
I mean, the thing I'm probably most proud of is going to sound corny, but the fact that I've been able to have a family and stay in the creative world, that to me is like making a living at this, and having the family is like kind of the, because when I was younger, I always felt like you had to like give something up, or you had to be tortured, or you had to like if you really want to be an actor, that's the only thing you can do. And I thought to myself that was kind of bullshit. Like you should be able to have a family, you should be able to have a life, you should be able to be happy and pursue the arts. Like it shouldn't be this brooding, starving artist thing. Like you should be able to enjoy yourself and enjoy life. Like we're only here for a little bit. Like why can't we go out and enjoy ourselves? So that's probably the thing I'm most proud of my life. But if it like specifically talking about stand up, it was probably the USO tours was when I felt proudest of what I did. Like where it was almost, you would finish a show and you'd have all these soldiers that actually have gone through a ton. Like we were in Iraq, these people like went through like real shit. And they would come over and be thanking us. And you know that they actually meant it. It wasn't like your mom telling you you're the most handsome kid in school. Like these people actually really like were so sincere about how much they appreciated you being there. And you're sitting there going like, I just tell jokes. Like, and then after a while you started to get like where you felt really good about it. Like I made a difference in somebody's life. Like I made somebody like forget about their problems for a day. Like that's an amazing feeling. Like to know that they're going through all this shit and you made their day a little better. Like that's probably work-wise what I'm most proud of.
Okay. Well, how about you tell us a little story? Can you tell us a little story? You put them on social media. Tell us a little story. You don't have to do it stand-up wise. I want to hear a story before you go because I like to hear a good story. I'm going to sit here. It's going to be really windy in New Jersey. Tell us a story, and then we'll let you go.
Okay.
Pick a good story. Oh, he's cracking. What is that? What is that?
It's called Sprinter. It's a black cherry vodka seltzer.
Oh, wow. Shit, that's pretty good. Oh, look at you. Big shot drinking the Sprinter. I never even heard of this. Look at him. Come on. Yeah, this will be real quick. A hack joke. I'm drinking this Sprinter because when I drink too many, the cops chase me. I sprint down the street. That would be the hack joke for Sprinter. I sprint. I run from the cops. I'm like a sprinter. Like I could be jumping hurdles because I drank the Sprinter and I hit wood and I got a splinter. Oh my God, I'm the sprinter with a splinter. And the crowd would go, what the fuck are you talking about? So I would never do that in my act, people. When you come see me, I would never do that. I might do that in my act now, but no one's heard a sprinter.
But he's going to write that for their commercial and submit it.
Exactly. So tell us a story.
I'll tell you, this is no matter how bad a gig is, I at least know I'm not these guys. That's going to be the theme of this story. I did a gig and it was in Cleveland, Ohio, and it was a big thing for the cops. It was the PBA or whatever they call it, and I was hosting it, and it was they were going to have raffles and they had some kind of music, and my brother and I both came. So my brother comes to the gig, and we show up early, and we walk in, and there are these two guys in tuxedos sitting at an empty bar, and the one guy is clearly the workhorse, and he's carrying all this equipment. And as he's carrying all the equipment, and the other guy's sitting at the bar, and he looked kind of like David Hasselhoff. And the David Hasselhoff guy is like ordering everybody around, right? And he's like kind of telling everybody what to do. And my brother and I are going, this guy's kind of a dick. The show starts, and they're the singers that are going to be on the show. I was the comedy. And the other guy, not the Hasselhoff, the other guy, he kind of looked like Don Knotts. Like he had a very Don Knotts look to him. And so what ended up happening is they told us, like, here's how the night's going to work. We have this girl coming in. Her father was killed in the line of duty, and we're going to have her sing the national anthem. And the Hasselhoff guy goes, no way. National anthem's our song. And she's like, I'm sitting there with my brother, like hitting him in the shoulder, going like, oh my God, like this guy's going to start a fight over this. He goes, oh, we're doing the national anthem. She goes, if you want paid tonight, she's doing the national anthem. So the girl ends up, she comes out with the Marines. They sing the national anthem. There's not a dry eye in the house. All of a sudden, my brother starts hitting me, and he goes, look at the stage. So as she's singing, I turn, and I'm trying, and I turn and I look on the stage. The one guy, the Don Knotts guy, is on a chair, and he's holding the flag. So it's going across, and I see a pair of legs behind the flag with these two Italian loafers. The guy's behind the flag. As soon as she finishes the national anthem, everybody's clapping. And they go, now, ladies and gentlemen, Jack Knight. And they drop the flag. And the guys there, the Hasselhoff guy, starts singing American Trilogy by Elvis, because he didn't want to be upstaged by this girl. And he's singing it, and he's giving it everything. He's glory, glory, hallelujah. He's down on his knee, and everybody doesn't know what to do. Like, nobody knows if they should sit down, keep standing. And there's just this like horrible moment of like, what do we do? What do we do? He finishes the song, and they kick off the events. As I go up to do my stand-up, the Don Knotts stands behind me, and after every single joke in his microphone goes, okay, that was funny. That was funny. So my entire act, I'm being judged by this guy. I finish the thing. I finish my act. They sing, and they basically just like, they have like tracks set up, and then they sing with the tracks. They do their thing, and then they go, we're going to take a 10-minute break. We're going to do the raffles, and then, these guys are going to come back up. So we do the raffle, and they're giving out huge prizes, like huge prizes. So as they finished the last thing, it was like a tractor. They gave away like a gigantic tractor. Everybody starts clearing out. These guys go back on stage to close the show, and they're singing a bunch of their tribute to Sinatra. And as they're singing it, literally the entire place is empty except my brother and I. The staff comes out and starts stacking chairs, wheeling the chairs out. They're rolling tables off into the back room, and they're still up there singing, fly me to the moon, let me fly. And my brother and I are at the bar laughing our asses off because they're playing like it's sold out. At the very end, they finish the show singing My Way. And as they finish the show, a woman literally during the last verse comes out and starts vacuuming. They're still on stage singing, and you hear, And they finish the show. And they're like, "Good night, Cleveland." They take a bow on both sides of the stage. Why the only people in the place is a bartender cleaning glasses, a woman vacuuming, and me and my brother are in the back of the bar just. They finish their bow and they go off stage, but there's no backstage. So they're literally behind a curtain that's about this big, up against the wall like this, so the audience won't see them. And they're hiding against the wall. And I look at my brother and I go, no matter how bad comedy gets, it'll never be this bad.
And at least they didn't do an encore. At least they didn't come out for an encore. So.
That would have been fantastic.
How can people find you on give all your social media stuff?
You can find me at Mark Riccadonna, anything Mark Riccadonna. I'm the only one out there. Or you can look up Drinks, Jokes, and Storytelling, and you will find me.
So people look him up, Riccadonna. That's Riccadonna. You can follow me on Twitter. It's at Cooper Talk. I just signed up for Blue Sky because I want someone to take Cooper Talk. And actually, Peter Frampton followed me. And I was
no
pretty
way.
Cool. Like I followed him. Well, I followed him. Someone put the starter pack, and I was like, "Wow, Peter, he doesn't know who I am." But I'm like, "Yeah, Peter Frampton follow me." So you can follow me on Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram. I'm at Cooper Talk 1, Facebook Cooper Talk. Go to my website, coopertalk.net. You can find over 1,025 episodes of my show, Cooper Talk. When you're on YouTube, look up the Coop Tank. That's my business podcast. I have 3 local business people on a panel. We talk about motivation, inspiration, all that good stuff. And don't forget, look at me, find me. Coops Comedy Corner. Find Comedy Trainwreck. Comedy Trainwreck and Jimmy has some great shows. Go like Corey Alexander's show. Go look, count, cancel culture. Go like all that stuff. Coleman Green, bunch of people. And I want to say, if you're in New Jersey or Phil, if you drive over to Laurel Lanes, right on 73 and Maple Shade, go to Splits Bar. You can find me there sometimes. They have great football specials. Go to laurelLanesNJ.com. That's about it. Thank you for watching and listening. I'm Steve Cooper, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Coops Comedy Corner.